Hey guys, prioritise here once again with another investigation video. I've seen so many of you guys confused and talking about elemental damage, so we're going to go over elemental damage in a bit more depth, covering just how that elemental damage works, what perks you want to look out for, and what perks you want to skip to really be making use of elemental damage builds. First up, of course, as usual, put any comments down below what you want to see in an investigation video for the next one. Your guys' ideas, your guys' comments are what makes me come up with what video to do next, so do put in the comments what you want to see and I just might make that video. Also make sure you click like and subscribe if you want more videos and more content like this. And also you can check me out over on twitch.tv, the link will be in the description. We're doing Monster Hunter, I'm a Switch Axe main, we're trying out different weapons and different builds, doing speedruns, viewer lobbies, do check it out if you're interested in that kind of stuff. So in our first investigation video where we explained all damage calculations, we did talk about how elemental damage was calculated, and to recap, what that means is that faster hitting weapons that don't include motion values as a big part of their damage number will be doing more elemental damage over time. It will have higher DPS in terms of the elemental damage over time because you're hitting more frequently for more flat elemental damage per hit, not including the increased multiplier for more heavy hitting weighted abilities such as things like the greatsword or other weapons that have large spinning or heavy hitting attacks. So to understand how this works and break it down, what it means is that for every hit you do, a portion of it is raw damage and a portion is the elemental damage of the weapon. This exact percentage is obviously hidden behind all the damage numbers, but you can get a really good understanding of this if you test different elemental and raw weapons on the same creature with the same builds to see the difference in numbers based on the creature's weakness. What you will find when you do this testing is that raw weapons with higher motion values will outperform elemental weapons, while elemental weapons will outperform the raw weapons with faster hitting, lower motion value attacks based on the creature's weakness. A very good example of showing this off is over on Reddit in Otomo's post where he shows the same build with different types of elemental bows and raw damage bows against different creatures and their weak points. We find that the actual bows that inflict elemental damage are hitting more higher damage numbers than the raw bows, depending on the creature's weakness. However, this also doesn't include the motion value attacks for the bows, so what this could mean is that a more optimized elemental build would be performing better, and also a more optimized raw build using the higher motion value attacks such as the jump attacks and also the dragon piercing attacks will outperform the elemental damage. So while it's situational, we can see that faster hitting, more rapid attacks on weak points with elemental damage is actually going to outperform the raw damage unless you're going for a specific build that includes high motion value attacks that you're going to take advantage of that higher native raw damage. And of course the link to that Reddit post will be in the description, but to recap everything, faster hitting lower motion value attacks with elemental damage against an elemental weakness creature will be dealing much more damage. However, high base raw weapons will be outperforming those elemental weapons if you are able to get off consistent high motion value attacks. So now that we've gone over the fact that because elemental damage doesn't include the motion value of the attack, more rapid, faster hitting hits will be better than more slower hitting high motion value hits for elemental damage, let's talk about what perks you want to include in your build and what perks you may want to skip. So I've seen a lot of people confused and really making suboptimal elemental builds when they're stacking elemental damage decorations in their build, and the reason for this is that not every weapon requires all levels of an elemental decoration in order to deal the most damage, because there is such thing as an elemental cap in Monster Hunter World. And this gets even more confusing because the elemental cap seems to be different for every weapon type, as well as also every weapon within each weapon type. What this means is that certain weapons only take 2 or 3 of these decorations to hit the elemental cap, while others take 4 or 5. So in the video on screen you will see that I am using the Valhazak Switch Axe, and with the build that I currently play with, 2 Dragon Attack jewels will hit the elemental cap for Dragon Attack on this specific weapon. If I try to slot in a third Dragon Attack jewel, which as the prompt on screen says should go from plus 60 to plus 100 Dragon Attack, you actually see that there's no increase. This means that I've hit the elemental cap for this weapon. Furthermore, you'll see that if I actually slot in the third Dragon Attack jewel, thus making a redundant jewel in my build, if I inspect my equipment, the damage number for the elemental dragon attack changes to a colour orange. This means that I've hit the elemental cap and that something is being wasted. So the first thing to look out for in your elemental builds is to make sure that you reach the elemental cap without wasting too many slots and going over that limit. The second most important thing for any elemental build is going to be the critical element perk. This can be found on the RATHALOS armor set and will allow your critical damage to actually crit, because while you can crit normally, the elemental portion of your weapon hit will not crit unless you have critical element, meaning that you want critical element if you are going for a fast, rapid hitting build that includes a lot of affinity, which most builds do with the addition of weakness exploit. Which of course brings us to weakness exploit, which is a perk that you definitely want to include in pretty much every build, because it is a huge affinity bonus that your elemental build will be benefiting from, especially once you add that critical element to it. Next up we have attack boost. Attack boost is an interesting one because it is a solid damage boost for any build, but it doesn't directly affect the elemental damage at all. It will only affect the raw damage portion that you're hitting in every attack. So I would recommend for most elemental builds is to fit attack boost where you can, ideally up to level 4 where you get the affinity bonus at an extra 5%. Going past level 4 is still nice, but not needed by any means, and level 4 is definitely the sweet spot for attack boost. So that brings us over to critical boost, the perk that allows you to increase your critical damage. But an important thing to know about critical boost is that it only affects the raw critical damage within your hit, so critical boost will not add any more to the elemental damage in your swing. So while it's a nice thing to have, especially since you're probably going to have high affinity anyway, it is definitely not something that is going to stack up the elemental damage, so you may wish to take this out in favour of other things that focus more on your element build, such as Handicraft, which is our next one to look at, which is the perk that allows you to increase the sharpness of your weapon. If you can get from blue to white sharpness, you will see a substantial increase in damage. Of course, this depends upon how much levels of Handicraft you need, as level 4 Handicraft can often be suboptimal because it takes up so many slots and pieces of armor in your build, but 2 levels in Handicraft, plus ideally a protective polish to go with it, you will see a great increase of damage in your build overall, and it is often worth the trade-off for something like critical boost, especially in an elemental build where that critical boost isn't affecting the elemental damage. So I hope this video helped you guys understand elemental damage a bit better, as well as elemental builds a bit better, and what perks you want to include and what you want to skip or prioritize for your DPS builds. I really like seeing elemental builds, and I really like seeing the creativity and differences that comes from them, because quite often min-maxed raw damage builds tend to be fairly similar. So if you guys enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments what builds you plan to make next for elemental damage. Also hit that like and subscribe for more content like this, as well as other games. Don't forget to check me out over on Twitch, where you can find me live streaming. Playing Monster Hunter at the moment is the #1 game that we tend to be doing. Of course, a Switch Axe main, speedruns, viewer games, all that good stuff. Definitely check it out. And as always guys, I'll see you next time.